Alright, we're in lesson 8. Our objective for today says I will be able to use case and evidence boxes and unit analysis to convert measures. Unit analysis to convert measures. We're going to do what's called case and evidence boxes, which we will look at once we get a little further along. So first thing we need to know is what unit analysis is. Unit analysis, as it says, is a process for converting measures into different units. So something like inches to feet. If we've got something in inches and we want to know how many feet that is, you've got to use this sort of unit analysis. We have to know that 12 inches equals 1 foot. Writing it as a fraction like that is a way of using a unit conversion. Okay? So since the amounts used in a unit ratio are equal to one another, this is a unit ratio. Okay? 12 inches is 1 foot. That's basically like multiplying by a fraction of 1, because if you simplify this, it equals 1, because this is basically the same thing, which is what this says. Are equal to another, a unit ratio is always equal to 1. So these unit ratios right here are equal to 1. So since the product of 1 and a number is that number, a unit ratio multiplied by a measure will always be the same amount. So multiplying by one of these unit ratios is the same thing as multiplying something by the number 1. Okay? So the way that we can help to remember these unit ratios is to use something that I call case and evidence. Okay? So I'm going to show you case and evidence in example 1. So example 1 says a cheetah ran at a rate of 105,600 yards per hour. How fast did the cheetah run in miles per hour? So what we're doing is we're converting from yards per hour to miles per hour. So how we would write this is like this. 105,600 yards, and then per. Per is a word that means division, so you can write it like that. That division bar means per, so per hour, okay? Now, this is what we are converting, or this is what I call my case, okay? I call this case and evidence because I think about it in terms of like those shows that you watch, like CSI and things like that. They've got a case, and in order to solve that case, what they need is some evidence. So here we've got a case, which is what is being converted. What we need is some evidence. Now, my evidence is what links the case to the solution. Okay? Evidence is what links the case to the solution. So if we're going from yards per hour to miles per hour, we need a conversion factor or a unit ratio, or what I'm going to call evidence, that says, okay, well, how many yards are in 1 mile? Well, what I know is that there are 1,760 yards in 1 mile. So I'm going to use that. Now, what we want in our case and evidence is we want things to cancel out. So things cancel out when you've got something like, let's say you've got 4 over 4. 4 over 4 equals 1. Okay? 1, when you're multiplying, does not have any value. And what we're doing, basically, when we're converting, is we're multiplying. Okay? So, if you multiply or divide by 1, that doesn't change the value of the number that you started with. So basically what we want is something where we've got yards over yards, or feet over feet, or miles over miles. So if I've got yards up here in the numerator, this is the numerator of what we're calling the case. If I've got yards up here in the numerator, I need yards in the denominator. So I've already said that 1,760 yards is equal to 1 mile. Okay? Now, I've got my case and I've got my evidence. So all we've got to do now is multiply or divide. Well, first what we know is if I've got yards here in the numerator, yards here in the denominator, this is going to cancel with this. So I've got 105,600 times 1, which just gives me 105,600, over, all right, 1,760 is all, or excuse me, not and, 1,760 is all I have in the denominator, and I look at what units I have. I have miles over hour, or another way to write that is miles per hour. Now all I have to do is simplify this fraction. If I divide that out, 105,600 divided by 1,760, that should give me 60 miles per hour. Okay? So we're going to do several of these problems. So if that sort of confused you, we've got several that we'll look at today. So let's look at when we start talking about unit analysis, not just in terms of yards per hours, but when we start talking about it in terms of area and volume. Okay? What we realize is that the measure of the length changes, then the unit analysis occurs in one dimension, like right here. Okay? But if the measure of the area changes, the units for the dimensions of both the length and the width change. So basically, if I'm going to yards to feet, I have to convert both the length and the width. So that means two different pieces of unit analysis. In the same way, if I'm converting volume, I have to convert the length, the width, and the height. So let me show you what I mean by that. Okay? Let's look at example 2. A gym measures 8.5 meters by 14 meters. Okay, so think about this conceptually. Think about a gym and the area of that gym. The owner bought mats to cover the floor. So we're talking about the area of this floor, and each mat is 110 centimeters square. What I already see is this is being measured in centimeters, and this was being measured in meters. So I know I'm going to have to use some unit analysis. If 95 mats were purchased, are there enough mats to cover the floor? Well, let's think about the floor. Let's just draw the floor out right here. Okay? Let's say it was 14 by 8.5 meters. Well, before I can figure out if there are enough mats to cover this floor, I've got to know what this area is. Right now, I don't know what this area is. So to find the area, you know how to do that. You first just multiply the length times the width. So the area is equal to 8.5 times 14. So the area equals, that should give me 119 meters squared. Okay? We found the area of the floor. Now I know that there are 95 mats made to cover this floor. Okay? We can think about the mats in terms of little pieces like this that are made to cover this floor. Okay? Well, in order to know if there are enough mats to cover the floor, I've got to figure out the area of these mats. Well, each mat is 110 centimeters squared. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to take this and convert it. So I could convert one of two things. I could either convert the area of the mats, or I could convert the area of the floor. Since we've already found the area of the floor, let's go ahead and convert that, okay? To convert, remember we're starting with my case. My case, or what we're going to convert here, is the area of the floor. So that's 119 meters. Okay? But here, remember, since we are dealing with area, I'm not just converting one unit. I've got to convert both the length and the width. So it's not just meters, it's meters squared. So let's do two different pieces of unit analysis, or two different unit ratios that we're going to have here in the case. So that means I need two different unit ratios here in the evidence. So I'm going from meters to what? Centimeters. Okay? So if I've got meters up here in the denominator, I know that I need meters, or excuse me, if I've got meters in the numerator, I know I will need meters in the denominator. So I think about some evidence that links meters to centimeters. Well, I know that 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. Okay, but again, we're converting not just the length and not just the width, but both of them. So we need two different unit ratios here. Okay, so again, I need 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. Here I've got I've got meters here and meters here in the numerator, and meters here and meters here in the denominator. So this meters will cancel with this, and this m will cancel with this, because that's just like having meters over meters, or just like having something like 5 over 5. It equals 1, so it's basically like they cancel out. Now all I have to do is I have to multiply. 119 times 100 times 100, which gives me 1,190,000. And that is, here are my units, centimeters times centimeters, or I could write that as centimeters squared. So basically, we just took the area of this floor and we converted it to centimeters. Now, I know that 95 mats were purchased. I know that each mat was 110 centimeters squared. So to figure out the area of the mats, all I've got to do is multiply that 95 mats times that 110. All right, but again, we're not just converting the length, we're not just converting the width. We have to do two different pieces of unit analysis here, so let's multiply by 110 twice. So that we have this answer in not just centimeters, but in centimeters squared. If I multiply that out, I have 1,149,500 centimeters squared. So what I notice is that the area of the floor is larger, is larger than the area of the mats. The area of the floor is larger than the area of the mats. So if these mats, this whole area, if it's smaller than the area of this floor, we know that there's not enough mats because that area is not big enough to cover this floor. So what we did is we converted here, and then we compared these two. So the mats are smaller than, or less than, the area of the floor. So there are not enough mats to cover the floor. There are not enough mats to cover this floor. Alright, we're going to cut off on this one. I want you to write on this, skip for now, and then we'll do it in the lesson practice.